So again, this is a webinar presentation, and it is we are hosting. DFA is hosting the Legislative Council Services on the new online capital outlay project request form. I'm really excited about this because as we spoke with our other trainings with ICIP, this is something that we wanted to do and hopefully be able to utilize your ICIP in order to auto-populate some of the fields in the form. Last year we tried it. We had a few glitches here and there. And so we just want to do everything we can on our end to provide you the information that you need to give LCS the best possible experience with this form from the ICIP. So just going on with my slides, again, I didn't want to actually make it a huge slide, but again, we welcome you to this training, and our presenter today is Michelle. That's wrong, but she is a researcher with the Legislative Council Services, or LCS. And again, this is hosted by DFA Local Government Division. I do want to, before I go on with my with the agenda, I did want to recognize also on the with DFA who's with us, and my supervisor, our bureau chief with Special Services Bureau, is Jeanette Gallegos, and it's super supportive throughout all of this training that we've done for you all. This is actually the 11th that we're actually doing, that relates to ICIP, and again, very pleased to be able to host this training. But Jeanette Gallegos is our bureau chief with Special Services, and then we also have Shantae Barella, who is with DFA as well with Special Services, and she is assisting us as being the host while I help Michelle with her presentation. So again, you all received, I hope, the agenda. Again, if you did not, here's a copy of it. All of the information is here of what Michelle is going to present on. And then if anyone is here from the COGS, we do want to allow them some time as well, as they had the opportunity to test this prior to sharing it with you. And then if we have time at the end, we will also provide a recap and closing comments about the ICIP as well. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to change my presentation, and I'm going to hopefully share it to the correct one. Hang on one second. Everything moved. My apologies. You're probably seeing flowers right now. Let me open that again. Okay, so with that, Michelle, I'll go ahead and turn that over to you.
Thank you, Carmen. My name is Michelle Josky. I coordinate the Capital Outlay Division for the Legislative Council Service. I'm happy to be here today, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate my partners at DFA and Local Government Division for facilitating this, giving us a chance to put this on today. I want to thank the regional councils and everyone else out there who took the time to go online and check out the form and give us some feedback. That's been tremendously helpful. I know some of you are sitting out there saying, I gave you a lot of feedback and you didn't do much with it. But I just want to take a step back and note that our IT department has been engaged in this massive and ongoing juggling act to keep everybody connected at the council service, to put on special sessions and do all of this kind of stuff. So a lot of their resources have been tied up with other things. We couldn't do everything we wanted to do this year, but I do want to say a big thank you to my brilliant colleagues, Ralph Vincent and Seth Morris, for all the time that they did give me to try and put this together. And I think we have made a lot of improvements from what we had last year. I'm going to kind of speed through this PowerPoint presentation. I just want to highlight some of the functions of the form. that are included in this presentation. And then I'm going to try to share my screen so that we can walk through the actual form and see what's there. So this first slide, I really just threw in for your entertainment. A few months ago, we looked at how we can reduce the person-to-person contact with all the document handling that we do. And this is part of a flow chart that I did for the capital request process. And if you look over on the left-hand side there, I got to the first step, which is basically intake, and it just turns into a whirlpool. If you've ever been up to the council service to turn in your projects, especially during a short session, by the second week, I've recruited people from the reception, the bill clerks, different session staff, and people are sitting in closets, seeing 23 or 30 people a day, stamping things in and sending them back out. And so clearly with the need for social distancing right now, this is one of the things we're trying to address and just straighten this out a little bit. And that's why everyone is required to submit this online this time. On the next slide, we just have a couple of little items. The deadline for submitting this year is February 11th. That falls on a Thursday. Generally, the deadline falls on a Sunday. And so that deadline has not changed. That deadline for legislators to submit their requests is 3 days before the introduction deadline. Excuse me, but we're cutting this off in advance so that we can send the legislators a final report, projects that might come in. They can decide whether or not to sponsor those and get them back to us. The address for the website is at the bottom there. You can go to the legislature's website, to the capital outlay page, and at the bottom of that page it says forms, and you can go to the electronic form that will link you up to that. And I just want to point out too that the reauthorization request form for 2021 is posted there on that page, and that process, it does not really lend itself to the online process that we're using for the capital request, but it will be a little bit different. So if you need to submit a reauthorization request, the form is there. Fill out the form, find your sponsor. If you need us to help you do that, we can do that, and then either have the legislator email that to us or email that to us with their signature, and then we will follow up with all the other funding sponsors and take care of that. Let's see. Oh, this is so we are going to go to the form itself in a few minutes here. This is the introductory page that has the terms and conditions. I just put it in here as a reminder of the eligibility requirements for submitting a capital request. Only the state or political subdivisions of the state are eligible to receive capital project funding. If you are serving as the fiscal agent for another organization, we still have that documentation requirement that you give us some documentation that you are serving as their fiscal agent and that you are leasing the asset back to them at fair market value. And different people have different ways of doing that. The Bernalillo County Commission passes a resolution every year, and they have all the people that they're working with on that. They give us that list, and so we don't have to try to follow up with people and get letters and such. But most people are very on top of that. I think the city of Albuquerque has a similar office that people can go to, explain their project, and get a letter of support if the city agrees to serve as their fiscal agent. And let's see, our next slide is, so this is what Carmen was talking about. The other big impetus for this project is so that we don't all have to keep filling out the same paperwork over and over again, hopefully. So this year, the first item is the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan Project ID number. If you have that 5-digit ID number for the project, this is not the entity code, but the project number, you can put that project number in. There's a little tab there, and we'll see that in the form in a minute. You click on that, and it will import your information from the ICIP. If you do not have an ICIP project number, you just start your request with item number 2. And there's a brief list here of things that are not in the ICIP, and so the form is not populated with this list of things. If you don't have an ICIP number, you will have to fill in all of these fields However, the form has been greatly streamlined, so it's not really a whole lot of stuff to fill in anyway. I did want to point out on the next slide a couple of things about the drop-down menus. So with the, I think it's one back, Carmen, but if you have an ICIP number, all of these fields will be populated. The receiving entity, which is the fiscal agent, and all these other things will fill in from that. The requesting entity, the project owner, and the location. Now you can overwrite some of those fields. The requesting entity, if the requesting entity is different than the fiscal agent, you can overwrite that default, as well as the project owner. And you can select from the location drop-down menu. With the fiscal agent drop-down, it is organized alphabetically, but there are a couple of little tricks to it. Just for ease of use, for our purposes, when we fill things in, all the courts are lumped together. So it goes courts, first judicial district, whatever. So if you're looking for something like that, you might have to look a little differently or explore how that works. With all of the institutions of higher education and community colleges, we use their acronym just because it's easier to type in UNM, and then there's a dash and it's spelled out, but it's an easy way to find that entity in the drop-down that way. Oh, and location names in that drop-down, we do not include city of, for city of Albuquerque, it would just be under Albuquerque. Village of Wagon Mound would just be under Wagon Mound. So just be aware of that. I think that was a little confusing to people last year. And I think I already mentioned about the community colleges and stuff. And if you can't find your entity in this, we have spent a considerable amount of time working on this table that links up the fiscal agents with the ICIP code and various things. And so, and we've tried to make it exclusively those eligible entities. So if you're not in there, there is a process for applying for that status. And basically the DFA has a form that you fill out, or you can call us and we can give you that process. We did a considerable amount of cleanup on that list, as I said. So I think there are a lot of acequias that had not been active for a while, but they do have project codes. So with those things, we may just be able to plug them in. If if you're trying to fill in that entity, give us a call and we'll see if we can just plug that in with the codes that we have. And total amount requested for this legislative session. Be sure that you enter the total amount that you are requesting from all members of the legislature, from the legislature as a whole for this session, and not the amount that you may request from an individual legislator. Last year, there was language in the bill that allowed the governor to take back projects that had been overfunded. So, you could have kind of an overfunding or an underfunding issue if you don't get that total project amount in there. And anytime you're entering numbers into the form, just do the number, no dashes, no decimal points, no dollar signs or anything like that. It will all be formatted for you. And let's see on our next slide. Oh, so I put this up here. I think you all, I'm sure most of the people here today know how the capital bill is organized. It goes by agency, and there's a list of projects underneath the agency. But I wanted to use this example because I don't think people think much about how we put these things together. So if you look at number 1 here, the legislative language, the project description starts with the to plan, design, construct. But anything that goes into the bill is going to have this dollar amount in front of it. But so we work on the language, and that's in a separate field. Then when we finally know what amount, what dollar amount will be assigned to that project, we put those things together and we roll it out of the database and put them in this list under the agency. So what we're asking this time is that you not, so it's been a kind of a difficult thing in the past because with the form that we had, it looked like you weren't writing a complete sentence if you started with a lowercase letter. But in this case, since it's going into a database, we're asking that you start your project description with a lowercase letter. And if you'll note here, that nothing is capitalized except these proper names like Curry, even county is not capitalized. You know, the city name is capitalized, Doniana, but not county. So everything else, if there's a question in your mind about capitalization, the style for the bill is this down style where almost nothing is capitalized. And so when you are thinking about your legislative language, your project description, think about having a dollar amount in front of that so that it all adds up. When these things come out, they automatically get connected with a semicolon. So we have this great long list, like for local government, it could be hundreds of projects, and they're all connected by this semicolon that also goes in there automatically from when you put all this stuff together. So if you have a period at the end of your legislative language, then we just have to go in there and take that out. And our proofreading department is struggling as well with just the change in system and having to do everything remotely. So we're trying to help them out as much as we can, get everything as clean as we can before it goes in there. And I think I have some general guidelines on the next sheet about the legislative language and project description. So we want to provide a brief project description that broadly describes the intent of your capital project. And I have a couple of examples here to plan, design, and construct water system improvements, plan, design, and construct road improvements. And I put those in. Those are things that, and I think that's on the next page, Carmen. Those are the preferred language from the Environment Department and the Department of Transportation. And the reason for that is, of course, that the more detail you get, the more tied in you are to that one thing. And you can't, you know, there may be a lot of things that have to happen before you get that water system together or that road together. We already talked about the starting with a lowercase and no ending punctuation. Only proper names should be capitalized. When we talk about the project titles, we do encourage you to abbreviate things, but everything has to be spelled out in the project description and the legislative language. So if you're putting new flooring in your gym, you would need to spell out gymnasium and those kind of things. And that's, you know, if you can think about that when you're doing it, that's great. Quantifying items in your request may limit your ability to carry out your project. So if you want to buy 2 police cruisers, if you say 2 police cruisers, you may get enough funding for 5, and then you would only be able to buy 2. You would need to reauthorize. So yeah, if you say, you know, to purchase and equip police cruisers, that would cover everything from 1 to, you know, however many you get funding for. And I know you all, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, you know many of these things. People also tend to put in a certain number of miles of road that they're going to pave or do something to. That is also really limiting because you may get money to do more or money to do less. Most of these descriptions should end with the project location in Las Vegas in San Miguel County. There's no need to put anything about New Mexico in there because if we can't locate it in this county, we know it's not, or in one of the 33 counties, we know it's not in New Mexico, and it wouldn't be funded anyway. And then we do, every year we have new session staff, and they don't have a lot of time to get up to speed on how we put this language together. So I notice sometimes they get fixated at one end or the other, and maybe your language gets tweaked in a way that you would prefer it not be tweaked. So just check your language when it goes up on the website after sponsorship. And if there is a problem with it, be sure and let us know so that we can fix that before it goes into the bill. Let's see, I think I lost my place here, but what, you have the next slide, Carmen? Oh, thank you. Okay. Oh, this is the last one that I have here. So we're going to go to the form in just a second. But we introduced this titling function this time. And so what happens with these different categories is we string these fields together that are noted at the top here. And so there you have some leeway in parts of these to tweak your title. And really the title is to distinguish your project, to make it easily searchable for you and for legislators. And then the other intent of this particular function for us this time is so that we can start to share these titles across agencies and hopefully help with federal funding. You know, if someone needs to locate that project because it qualifies for some federal funding or something, that will help us all in the long run. And I know it's hard to look at this and tell what's happening here, but I think if we go look at the form, it will be clearer. So let me see if I can share my screen at this point. Okay. So this is the terms and conditions. We already talked about this. You go to the bottom of the terms and conditions and acknowledge those. Click the little box down here, and it takes you to the request. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and do one that imports the ICIP data. If I can remember what it was. There we go. Okay. So this is a project that Hubert Quintana shared with me while I was doing some testing on this. So I hope you good folks in JAL don't object that I'm going to use this as an example. But so then I click import ICIP data, and everything gets pulled in. One of the things that the DFA has requested is that we include this contact title because they need to get in touch with you to do all kinds of things. So this is something that isn't coming in from the ICIP, but can be easily filled in there. And now this is what I was noting before about the fiscal agent. So that gets populated from the ICIP, although if you don't have an ICIP number, you can select that fiscal agent. It still will populate the subsequent fields, but that may be when you want to overwrite what pops up in there if there's a different requesting entity or a different location, something like that. So in this case, all of those things are the same. The county gets populated from there. Total amount requested this legislative session, and I'm just choosing an amount here. It doesn't really make sense, or it may not make sense, but just because we need to fill in all of these fields. Now, with this one, so if you have time to make these changes to lowercase things and take out, and I would just say here and thank you for bearing with me today because I was telling Carmen, I am getting some new lenses here very quickly, but today I'm a little challenged with my vision, so. And then we're going to take off the period at the end, and this is not, see, I have an extra space in here, I think. But anyway, you make those changes to your legislative language. Project type for title. So this really just goes in the title. In this case, I know that this convenience center is, we're talking about upgrading. So maybe I would choose upgrade for this, but you could also choose construct. This is not something, the title is not something that the DFA uses to create your grant award or grant agreement, but it really is just something to distinguish the project and let us know what we're talking about. We also don't want to have duplicate projects, so we will have a way of screening with using those titles so that we don't have, $50,000 here and $60,000 there for the same project. It's a lot of extra paperwork for everyone to do that. The project subject is something that the council service has traditionally done, and we thought we would experiment with this and see how people categorize themselves, but I think it is a little more confusing than we thought it would be, and I have included something else in the instructions that has these categories, and it has a little more information about where to sort yourself. In this case, this is a land, some kind of a landfill or a drop-off point for solid waste, I think. So I'm going to choose this subject, but don't worry too much about this project subject. If you can't find one that you should be able to fit into one of them, and that is likely something that we will look at anyway and make sure that we have it in the right category. This 2020, the proposed project start date came in from the ICIP, and you can see that we can have, this project has already started. So, that's not a bad thing. It's in progress. I'm going to leave all of these next 4 questions blank. I'm not leaving them blank. If you put a check mark in there, it's a yes. If you don't, it's a no. So it won't kick it back to you to fill that in, but if you don't click the box, then it will be recorded as a no. The budget information came in from the ICIP. So if you wanted to change any of that, you could. That's the other big thing about this. You can change the legislative language, you can change the budget, you could update the funding secured to date or whatever. We did make a small change in the format for the non-ICIP projects, so it was really difficult. You had to put a 0 in everything, and someone had the great suggestion to pre-populate it with zeros. So if you do not have an ICIP project, you just need to go in and fill in the categories where you do have, where you are requesting money or you do have funding already. So that should be a little easier. And then you just click calculate totals. That comes up that way. And this is the naming function, the titling function that I was talking about. So you choose one of these items, it's either some sort of facility or system. It may be a vehicle or equipment purchase. It could be a road. And the reason these things are separated is that the titling is just a little different. Traditionally, we have always started the road projects with the name of the road, because otherwise you can have a bunch of, that gets kind of lost in there, and the name of the school. So in this case, we're going to choose the facility, and we're just going to call this I think it was so you see, you can have a little bit of leeway in, or a little bit of, I guess, leeway in how you set this up to get your project titling. So we know that the first part of this is going to be JAL, because they're the fiscal agent. Then it will say JAL Convenience Center relocate, and then it will have the project type for title, which is, I think we chose construct or upgrade. Go down here, make sure that everything's filled in, that you don't need to make a change in your budget, especially because that will be, it just will be difficult to, what we don't want is to have multiple duplicate projects. So make sure all your funding is, or everything is the way you want it to be before you do this. You submit your capital project request. JAL Convenience Center, relocate and upgrade, then you can display the summary sheet. And we were going to design this so that this all read as one thing: JAL request $300,000 to plan, design, relocate, and construct upgrades to the convenience center. And I should have lowercase those two. But I realized that, not a lot of the project descriptions are going to come in a way that allows us to do that this time. But this, I think, looks really good. I think the complaint that we've had from legislators in the past is that they didn't know what the project was. They didn't know what it was about. or how much money they were requesting. So I think those things are all really clear here. There is just some brief other information. And one of the criticisms I received about this is that it's very bare bones, and it is indeed. And but I guess we can think more about what we might want to put in here. Now, one of the things that we were hoping to nail down this last week, but everybody's time got kind of siphoned away with the special session, was how this information is going to go to the legislators. So the plan right now, and I wanted to have I didn't want to put a prototype up because I want it to be a certain thing, but, or, to give you the actual way this is going to go to legislators. But the plan is to have a list of projects. It will be sorted very similar to the by-county reports that we do, because I think that's the way that legislators look at, if they're looking for a project, they want to see if it's in one of the counties that's in their district. And so it will have the ID number, the project title, and the description. And now beyond that, they will also get a spreadsheet, or this spreadsheet hopefully will go to their legislative aid. So I think it's just hard to look at a spreadsheet and see all the project description and everything. So I think the sort of by-county sponsorship list will allow them to choose those projects that they want to sponsor. Their legislative aid can turn around and put those into that spreadsheet, so she can have something to check against. That spreadsheet comes to us, and we upload it and link that legislator to those projects. Then we will turn around and manipulate the language, make sure that that's language that can go into the bill, and create a new report for the legislator that, with the straightened out projects. It's so quiet out there. I guess I should turn.
It is quiet, but that's on purpose because we're all listening intently. This is Carmen. Are you ready for questions on this, or did you need to show us some more?
I think I'm ready for questions.
Okay, so I'm going to actually start from the top, and then some of that was for me, so I'm going to skip over that. If you can just bear with me. I guess people were having problems hearing, but I guess that was taken care of.
Oh, good.
Okay. I think, and then also just to let everyone know, I also, we are joined today by Mr. Wesley Billingsley, who's also the Bureau Chief with the Capital Outlay Bureau. So I think between he and, if you don't mind, Mr. Wesley, that between he and Michelle, maybe they would be able to answer some of these questions, because a lot of this is actually related to Capital Outlay itself. So the first question is, how long can a Capital Outlay award typically sit dormant or inactive without being vulnerable to being clawed back by the legislature?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know if Wesley wants to address that. There are guidelines. There are a couple of questions in this form too that deal with that. So asking about project readiness and noting that in order for a state agency to certify this project, they have to be reasonably certain that you can expend 5% of the money within 6 months and 85% of the money within 3 years. So for a construction project, the expenditure period is 4 years. I think it really depends on a lot on, and Wesley can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but depending on how much money is out there, and I've seen projects go out and then have to be clawed back immediately because the financial situation changes. But generally speaking, I think there's a little more leeway than that 6 months or 3 years. I think the rule is that things have to be, it will revert after 1 year if nothing has been spent. Probably Wesley would be better to answer that.
Yeah, I can answer. Hi, Michelle and Carmen. So this is
Hello.
Wesley. I did answer it a little bit in chat. So, if it's funded with the general fund, and there is a risk of, the state budget having issues, we could potentially claw back some of that as we did during the special session back in June. If there was no activity on a project, we did put it in that bill, Senate Bill 5, to take that back. But usually, especially with severance tax bonds, if you've encumbered 5%, and sometimes if you've just encumbered anything, we will look past that and not take any money back. So I think the good rule of thumb is once you get the grant agreement at the local level, I think that it's best to try to submit that notice of obligation to the local government division or whatever state agency you're working with, and try to get that money encumbered as quickly as possible to avoid that risk.
Thank you, Wesley and Michelle. And then also, if I may add, it's very, very important for you to work with your program or your project manager. Again, just keep in touch with them, let them know where you're at. If you're having issues and, getting quotes or whatever is happening with your project, so important to keep in touch with them and make sure that you're connecting with them on all levels of your project, just to make sure that they are aware of where you're at. And then the most important, you are required on a monthly basis at the end of the month to update CPMS. So, and also just to let you know what I do is part of the checklist that we have with DFA is to actually make sure when a pay request is submitted or a reimbursement request is submitted that you have updated your CPMS, and that's something that I actually have to include as part of my backup when I submit it to management. So again, very important that it kind of keeps you up to date on it. Anytime you submitted a reimbursement request, update that CPMS as well. So that, again, that keeps everybody on the same page. I'm going to actually combine a couple of questions that were asked here. One was, which I thought was really cute, is there a way to play in the sandbox, Michelle, to be able to start entering projects and see how it's going to work, the whole system, without actually submitting? And then also, how soon can they begin entering the projects or the requests?
So I'm sorry if there's someone out there that didn't get to play in the sandbox when we were doing all this testing. We are intending to open the site tomorrow because I know folks down in the southeast and southwestern parts of the state have meetings coming up with their legislators and want to get projects in there. And so there really isn't, other than you can use that little project, or the little map for the project titles, and try to see, what would go in there that way. Yes, and you can change anything up to the point where you say submit my capital request. So you can look at it and change it around. You can kind of write out what those fields will be. I know it will be a little different for schools. The name of the school comes first, and then you choose a project type for the pre-K through 12 schools, and then you have the other project type. But you do have a little leeway in that first part with the school. You could add stuff in there. So it is an interesting question to do that, but.
So excellent. So they can start actually submitting their requests as of tomorrow.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So again, I'll just go ahead and go through the questions, and then I want to offer some information as well. So people are asking about the presentation. Yes, I did send that to everybody, but I know that not everyone got it. And then actually, Michelle did update her presentation. There's a couple of extra slides. So I will be sending it out again to everyone, as well as the survey, because we need to hear your comments on this as well. So there was a question, and I know that, thank you, Wesley, again, for answering some of these, but is there going to be a capital outlay request? Oh, if there is going to be a capital outlay request that is not a project listed on the ICIP, do you have to build one like last year?
Do you have to build an ICIP?
No,
Oh,
the actual project in the form.
oh, no, no. Well, I guess so. If it's not in the ICIP, then you need to fill in all the blanks on the form that way.
And then also, as last year, if you would like to go ahead and add it in the ICIP, and then I can review it for you prior to submitting it on the capital outlay request form. And please know that if you do want to include it as a capital outlay request or project request, that I will work with you specifically on the language, and keeping everything lowercase. And my apologies to everyone. I actually had you put like JAL, New Mexico. So my apologies to that, but it's just a little bit that you'll have to remove, not a whole lot. And again, remember that you'll need to remove the punctuation at the end as well. The period does not go there. Okay, so let me move forward. Okay, so someone also asked, so to be clear, there is not an opportunity to write more detailed scope anywhere else. Says this makes the city of Albuquerque a little bit nervous.
Yeah, well, I did receive that criticism, and I had discussed that with our IT folks, and so I'm getting a lot of resistance. If you wanted to include something that said, whatever amount you want from each legislator, and who the legislators that you were asking for those things, that's not really information that we can collect that way because it's so eclectic. It's just here, there, and the other. I can talk to them again, and I think that they're not understanding that some projects do need that. Maybe we can have 5 lines in the middle here before the or after, before the project contact. You get all this basic information, and then just have a field that people could type information into. It wouldn't be information that we could collect, but it would be something that could show up on the project summary here. But I need to visit with them again. They have just been so busy, and I think they did not understand what I was saying about that. So
Carmen and Michelle, could I just add to that, just because I want to give an example
sure.
that might be helpful?
Priscilla, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. I'm Priscilla Lucero, and I'm the director of the Council of Governments in Silver City. I cover the Southwest region, and I've been working capital outlay for many, many years. So I just want to kind of address a little bit about what Albuquerque is feeling. And I understand their sentiments, but I think that kind of goes back to why it's so important to follow that ICIP process, because, and I've been in situations where we know what the intent was based on the ICIP, and the only thing that I can say to protect myself as the COG director is that that's why when we submit the request, it goes back to what they adopted in the capital improvement plan, because there will be people who would want to circumvent that, because they say, no, this is a priority. And so we can't do that, because then it doesn't protect me as a COG director. It doesn't protect the staff either, because sometimes constituents may want to do that. In some cases, it could be staff. And unfortunately, there's a reason why we have the language the way it is, because in the earlier years of capital outlay, so much money was being reverted because the scope wasn't broad enough, and therefore monies were being lost by the local government. So we don't want to go that direction either. So that's why whenever I get a request from doing a capital, I said, is in the top 5 ICIP, if it's been approved, is your county commission or city council in agreement? And I've had situations where they haven't been. And so then I have to go back, and sometimes it's between council people or commissioners that say, no, that's not what we discussed. And I have to go back to the minutes of that council to determine what was the priority, because you can't circumvent what you adopted as a team or as a council or commission. I wanted to share that because that does happen.
Okay. I wanted to know one other thing here. There's a
Can we hang on a second? Someone has some background noise. If you could please turn off your microphone. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
So there is a print button down at the bottom here, and I meant to ask IT about this, but you can always print it to a file. If you have Adobe or something, you can print it to a file, and then you can, if you have that capability with your Adobe system, you can manipulate the file that way. But I would encourage everybody to print to a file and then either email or, I mean, it's still going to be difficult to hand these off to a legislator. So you'll likely be emailing it, and you may want to just have a, you know, in your email say, attaching the information for this project. We're requesting that each legislator provide $50,000 for this project, or something like that. That's a possibility. I will revisit that issue with IT, and I think that would be the place to do it if we were going to just give you 5 lines and you could either provide a justification or some detail about how much you were requesting from each legislator, or I guess is that the general idea that we're talking about? Just to have something in there that would give you, you know, give you the ability to give some more detail about this project?
Hey, Carmen, this is Wesley. Is Mark on so he can actually talk to us about what exactly he is trying to request with that?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for holding this meeting and training. Michelle, I really appreciate it, and Carmen and Wesley and everybody. We're just a little nervous because we like to write scopes. You know, in the past, we've been encouraged, and I'm not saying this is happening now, Wesley. Don't get mad at me. I'm just saying that we've been asked to write 1-page or 2-page scopes of what exactly we want and need, including what we've submitted in ICIP. And this seems that the pendulum has swung in the other direction and is a little too broad. And I'm just worried that if we don't get the right words in this scope that the legislators see and that is approved and signed by the governor, that later down the line when the money is available, we're going to get some pushback saying, well, that's not in your description. That's all. I'm just asking for a little bit more space where we can write using more of the words from, you know, Title II, Chapter 61, Part 6, Interpretation of Authorizing Language. You know, I have a feeling that a lot of our projects are now going to say for a Little League, for a library, because that encompasses the most that we can do. So that's, I just don't want to get caught in a year from now when we get these grant agreements and, you know, you guys say, oh, you can't use it for that. That's my only concern.
Right. Well, that makes sense. And I think that we left this, you know, even if you pull this in from the ICIP and it's a shorter description, I think you put up to 500 characters in this descriptive passage. So if you wanted to combine some of your scope in there.
And Michelle, sometimes we use the word, but not limited to, because sometimes, you know, we do have that fear, and I understand where his fear is coming from, because at the end of the day, we as COG directors, especially if we're doing the capital out request, it's going to come back on us. And where did you get that? That's why it's so important, in my opinion, that these trainings are critical to people who are doing it. And it's just as important to train the staffers and the elected officials as well. And so that's why in our process, we make sure we're right in sync with the legislators, and it's our responsibility to ensure that these legislators have a complete understanding of what the request is for. And that's why we have these legislative forums, or we have these hearings, because that gives them the ability to ask questions and also gives them the ability to be able to be clear and concise about what the request is. And not everybody does that, but let me tell you, it has really alleviated a lot of the hardship. And even if you do it as your own community, so if Albuquerque wants to have, you know, a hearing with your local legislators to make sure and vet the projects, that's another way of doing it. And it does It takes some upfront work, but in the long run, it'll save you all the hardship that you're talking about, Mark, after the fact.
Yeah, one thing that we never use, and it's just a no-no as far as bill drafting, is the including but not limited to. That's not something that would get past my drafting director. So it sounds great, but it's just too broad that way. So and the other thing I would point out is that you can make those changes to this language, but people can also tie this back, because you do have if it's in the ICIP and the ICIP includes your scope of work, I'm assuming that DFA is looking at that too when they do these, come up with a grant agreement. And I may be wrong about that. I don't know, Wesley and Carmen.
I know I do. And, and honestly, that's part of something that I do assist with in vetting, when vetting all of the projects that have been submitted and, being considered for capital outlay, is I do make sure that that project is indeed on the ICIP, and if not, let them know. And then, if any additional information is needed, I know that capital outlay also looks at it as well as, other agencies, I hope, also look at that. If not, we'll need to make sure that they get a copy of that also. Real quickly, Michelle, you did not show everybody the instructions. Is there any way to go back so you can show them how to look at that?
Yes, let's see.
And while she's doing that, if you don't mind, I wanted to also, I know that Wesley answered the question on will there be money for capital outlay projects in the budget? And as he mentioned on here, we will not know until December. The revenue projection will be then, and there will be no general fund money, only severance tax bonds is what they are looking at as right now. Okay, go ahead.
So I clicked on this, and in almost all of the items on the form, there's a see instructions and the link to these instructions, and it should go to the page where the instruction for that item is found. There are a lot of things attached to these instructions now, abbreviations, and really the abbreviations are just there to help you if you need to shrink your title down. We did include this additional information about the project subject codes. But basically, there's an instruction for each item, and you can click on that in the form, and it will take you to the instructions for that item.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Because that's one really good thing that I liked about this as well, is that on any question that is on the form, there's that opportunity to pull that up. So, or you can also, save this as well, and that way you have that on hand all the time. And then also, there was a question asked, and I think this one's more for me, but, I know that you all have already submitted your ICIPs. It's already been published. There is actually no need to go in and change your ICIP just to correct the formatting and putting everything lowercase. You can actually do that on the form now, which is a really cool thing, because last year we could not do that. So again, just remember that once it's published on the ICIP, there's no way that it's going to be tied into this anymore, because you already have tied it in. It's not going to be changed. So you can actually go in when you answer that question, it'll auto-populate, and then you'll be able to actually just change the lettering. Just that easy for you. And there was the question, and I think that Michelle did correct this, but on that convenience center example, yes, that should have been lowercase as well. And I believe that there was something else on the form that someone asked about. Let me go through the questions again.
Okay, I know I'm forgetting a couple of things that I wanted to mention, and they're just not coming to mind right now. I think last year we did have the scope of the scope of work came in as well, and it just created a lot of unnecessary language, I thought, because a lot of the scope was more of a justification for the project than that. So I don't know, I guess it created confusion among my session workers. So we kind of paired it back to this. But I think you can put quite a bit of information in that project description. I think there are, I don't know if I can tell how many lines are here, but there are at least, I think there are at least 10 lines here.
Michelle, if they were to do that, though, would that be more work for you all to have to remove in order to utilize that legislative language? Again, we want to try to make everything on your end as as clean and as easier for you all as possible, because just to let everyone know, Michelle's way too nice. But last year, because we were not used to that language, I mean, we see it all the time, right? But that's not something that we trained on. So it's very important to be able to provide that for them, because that created a lot of work for them to have to go through all of them and change the lower, the lettering to lowercase and all of that. So as you go through and enter your projects, or choose your projects, please just take the time to go into that and change that to lowercase.
Right. Thanks, Carmen. And I'm not suggesting that you include your whole scope there, but I do know people have pointed out to me there was one project that involved some perimeter fencing, and that was a huge part of the project. But it also there was a building that needed to be renovated, and there was new construction. And so, whoever had looked at that project said, oh, this is just a plan, design, and construct. But in fact, those elements were very key to the project. So I think, Mark, that you're asking, if there's a little more that you needed to define, an including phrase or something, to plan, design, and construct a community center, including perimeter fencing or whatever it is, you would be able to add that, while still trying to keep the broad scope but including any really necessary item that might be important to your project with local government.
Thank you, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Michelle. A question here from Los Alamos County. And if you scroll down on the form on the not yet funded box, just for FY 2021, should they only include that, or should they include the future amounts that are included in the ICIP, that specific project for the future years?
I would include all of the years. So what we're trying to get here, and I think this goes on to the summary sheet as the total project cost. Or actually, it would be this combination over here. But anything that's not yet funded, even though, people will be able to make a calculation from the summary sheet of the amount that you're requesting this legislative session versus the total project cost. And they will also see on the summary sheet the funded to date. So they'll still be able to calculate, well, this is another phase of this project, and that's what they're asking for now. But I would include get the whole amount out there. So you wouldn't have to change. I think that's pulling everything for all years for that project from the ICIP. I think that's how it was set up. So.
Hi, Michelle, yes, Wesley. Sorry, Carmen. Yeah, that's exactly what that's doing. So it would be all of the years out in your ICIP would be put there, anything or past the current fiscal year. So, and the reason for that is to make sure that we get the full project cost. That way, if there is that language in the bill, as Michelle mentioned earlier, to take money from those projects that were overfunded, we might not do that, right? So even if you requested 200,000 and you got 500,000, but the total that you need is 1 million, then we wouldn't take any money back for that. So.
Thank you, Wesley. Okay, so there's I don't know if we've answered this or not. So, so with the form itself, so they're asking if they need to print it for signatures, and also, so the fiscal agents, as fiscal agents, they no longer assign to legislators. The legislators pick is what their question is. And then if I didn't ask that correctly, you're welcome to turn on your mic and you can ask that instead. Did that make sense, the
That
question?
makes sense to me. So, the intent is to prevent, or not to prevent, but to eliminate that need to contact and that need for a signature and for these things to come in individually. So it will be a list. The legislator will sign off on that whole list, but you will need to follow up with your legislator, if they don't know right away that that's the project you want them to sponsor. And the way this will work too. So I think that if you have your projects in early and they're in that first round, the first report that goes to legislators, I think they'll have a better chance of sponsorship. I think that things tend to get, whereas people or legislators would like to see you in their office and they respond to that personal contact, there won't be that opportunity this year, I think. And so it's going to require some follow-up in different ways. And I think that if you're on that first list, you have a better chance to follow up. You have more time to follow up. And things tend to get lost as the session goes along. They're not going to be interested in getting a list every day. So we likely will be sending out a list once a week, possibly twice a week, if that's what they decide they want. But it's the incentive for them to get that back to us is going to be the constituents saying, "Where's my project? You haven't sponsored it yet." I think this will be easy.
Michelle, this is Heather with Albuquerque Public Schools. Thanks for doing this meeting. I typed the question because we have 140 schools, and sometimes the legislators don't always remember what exactly schools in their district. So we can communicate with them separately if that's what you're saying. But are you saying there's no need for signature pages at all now?
Right. So the legislator will sign off on their summary sheet, no, not their summary sheet, their sponsorship report, and that will turn around, put that into a database and into the spreadsheet, and so you'll see if your project was sponsored or not. And as always, sponsorship is confidential until the midpoint of the session when their capital outlay requests come out, and of course funding is still confidential down the line. But no need to get things signed off on. I think the plan right now for the session is to have space in the convention center in Santa Fe so that there can be committee meetings where the public attends, and at that point you may be able to hand a legislator a project request, but we won't be doing the intake where it has to be signed and we make 2 copies and all of that. So.
Okay, here's the question again. It's being asked, will we have a way to see which legislators funded our projects? And may we get a copy of those spreadsheets?
This past year, many of the House members released their project funding. So, and in fact, over the past couple of years, more and more have said, yes, you can release my funding choices to anyone. But, generally it's a media outlet that asks for that. And if they don't publish it, then there's some question about, is that really something that we want to release? But generally speaking, the funding information is confidential. There have been a couple of bills or multiple bills on making that, having a list at the end of the session that shows who funded what and why, but that bill has never passed. So it would kind of be pick and choose, or we would need to look at our lists to see if we could determine who, or if we were authorized to release information about those folks. So that continues to be confidential kind of a thing. You can see sponsorship because the capital outlay requests that we produce, the certificates that are introduced on the floor of the House at the midpoint are posted overnight, so you could look at those and see if your legislator has sponsored that.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple more questions and then we need to go ahead and close this meeting, but I did want to let everybody know. Again, I hope to send you all a link of the recording for this meeting. If necessary, we will see what we can do to do this training again, if there are any major updates or anything like that. But honestly, since it's opening up tomorrow, the form for you all to complete, the best thing to do, is to contact either Legislative Council Services. You can always contact me as well. I will assist in any way I possibly can. And if I don't have the answers for you, I will definitely get those for you. So just a couple more questions. I think this one's kind of important, but again, because I'm not sure if I know the answer to this. So this is, do you require the local governments to submit a capital outlay request for a senior center in addition to submitting a request to the aging and long-term department? Being that we have our own application process and agency vets the projects and provides a recommendation. So part of that I will answer, and the one thing that I always tell my people that, when you have a project, no matter what it is and no matter what funding sources you're looking at, again, you need to look at the opportunities out there. So with capital outlay for senior centers, as Barbara stated, they do have their own process. They have a whole application process that they do, and they're the ones that you will submit your senior projects to. Although if it's a brand new senior center and that's something that you want initially some assistance from the legislators, then you can definitely do that as well. But again, we want to make sure that we follow all of those processes, and I just want to make sure, not you to say that you can go ahead and submit, but don't duplicate, if that makes sense to everybody.
Hey, Carmen, can I jump in here real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hey, Barbara, thank you for the question. I know you and I have talked about this before many times. So, in the past, when aging and long-term, when senior center projects come through the bill and get to the governor's desk to sign, they do go through that vetting process with aging and long-term services. So usually if that project went through our process with aging and long-term services and was not recommended, we would recommend that a veto for the governor for that project. Now, if there was a project that didn't go through the aging and long-term services process, we would leave it up to the governor at that point to veto or not. So I don't know if that really helps at all with this question, but this year might be a little different. I do know that quite a few senior centers were not able to go through the application process due to the pandemic. So when those do get to her desk this year, I don't see them being vetoed as much, just because we do know that there were issues out there with getting all of the information submitted to aging and long-term services like they were supposed to. So Barbara, does that answer your question? You can jump on and let me know.
Thank you, Wesley. Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate that, and I will send that information out to the local governments to let them know exactly what you stated on this. And many of them are online, I'm sure, as well.
Carmen, this is Hubert. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you, Hubert?
I'm well, and thank you. And Michelle, thank you so much for all you've done in this process, and Carmen as well. You said you might do a recording. Do you know when that might be ready? I've had at least 10 people call me or send me text messages during this thing that said they could not get through on the link that was provided. It either said canceled or rescheduled, and so they couldn't get on. If we could get that information to me so that I can get it to them and then they can listen to this, a recording of what we did today, that would be terrific.
Yes, sir. I will know as soon as this meeting is over. It takes a few minutes to process. And once that happens, I will attach the link and how to access it in the email that I send out with a survey. Okay.
Okay.
So again, just sometimes with these, virtual meetings, you think you're recording and all of a sudden it only did 10 minutes of it. So cross your fingers, everybody, that it all worked and that we can get this to everybody. And my apologies to everybody. We did have an issue when we first actually set up this meeting, and they've changed our access and everything to this WebEx, and so that's why I did send, don't be alarmed, an email stating that we had to cancel that first meeting and then resend it. So my apologies if all of that got lost in the shuffle, but hopefully, we will be able to provide that for you. And just a couple more questions, if you don't mind, we're going to go ahead and just go through, and then I'd like to have some time for the COGS to just provide your insight on this new form as well. And with the so the question was, do we have to submit a form for every request? Yes. I'll answer for Michelle. If for every request that you have, I mean, if you want them to see it, you're going to have to submit something. Again, it doesn't need to be one of your 2022 projects that were listed, because your whole list is on there, and you can also include any projects that were not on your list. Okay, but then again, I am offering, if it wasn't on your ICIP list, please let me know and we can add it on and I can view it for you, and then you can just copy paste it in. Okay, and it'll be a lot easier for you that way. So at this point, I know that there was just a few more questions, but I think a lot of it was already answered. Michelle, again, thank you so much for this very important meeting. As I told you, I know that we have been waiting for this, and it's very timely since the new form is going to be up and running tomorrow. So thank you again.
Yes, and thank you for hosting, and thank everybody for all their input. And I hope you just be sure to give us a call if you run into problems or have questions. Thanks so much.
Okay, great. Thank you again. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you could stop sharing your screen, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Oops, except I just lost what I was wanting to share with you. So give me a second. Just get back into my desktop.
Oops.
Yeah, we're both oops. Okay.
Oh, I don't see the stop sharing thing. Let's see.
I think once I do mine, that it should be able to allow me to do that.
There.
Okay, there you go. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And oops, I just did something on there, so my apologies. Do you mind turning off my video, Shantae? For some reason, I must have turned it on. So I just want to go ahead and again thank the COGS as well. All of our Newmark group, or our councils of governments, have been a tremendous help with all of our trainings through ICIP, and we actually planned for everything the way we did it. It was all with the help of that, for all of the executive directors, their staff. They've just been amazing. So I just wanted to kind of again show you, these are your COGS. This is where they're at. These are all of the executive directors. Anytime you need any assistance, they have done this for many, many years, and they can help you as well. They probably know way more than I do on the process of submitting capital outlay requests. So just to let you know that also. So I want to go ahead and turn it over first to Priscilla, as she is the chair for Newmark, and then we can just go through the list. If anyone is here, you're more than welcome to unmute and talk. Go ahead.
Thank you, Carmen. I do want to thank everybody for being on the webinar today. As I've mentioned to many people, this, especially if you're new to it, it takes years to really really understand this process. But I've got to say that I really want to commend all of you, because every time we do something to the process, it is improved, right? And so, you know, it is much easier in certain ways, I think, once we get past the fear of doing something new. So we're seeing a huge improvement. I also think it's important for everybody to know that really we all are also educating our new legislators, and we have many new legislators in the state. And so we've been trying to educate them as well as to some of those processes, because it's difficult for them as well to make sure that they really understand some of these processes and how it all works. So we're doing that. And so we continue to be here for all of you. That is really our role in the state, is to really provide you that guidance, and feel free to reach out to your designated COG, and we'd be happy to review that language for you and help you in any other way that you seem that would be feasible to help you through this process. And that's the whole reason we're here. So thank you to all of you for always including us and for the continued improvements, and it just gets better every year. So thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. Not sure if we have anyone else, but I'm just going to whoever would like to speak on the councils of governments, again, what your thoughts were on the actual form. Again, this is something that, we've all been working towards. So,
Carmen? Raymond Mondragon, Eastern Plains Council of Governments. Sandy is out this afternoon. I want to echo what Priscilla just said and not go into repeating a lot of what she said. We have already set December 17th, starting at 10 a.m. in a virtual Eastern Plains Council of Governments Legislative Forum. We have Senator Pat Woods, Representative Chatfield. We also have both the two new Congresswomen-elect, Yvette Harold and Teresa Ledger Fernandez, will be speaking at the beginning of our meeting and kind of basically introducing themselves and talking about what their desires and goals are for our region. So we're pretty excited about that. We also continue to assist our rural communities in the process of capital outlay. I'm the one that does that. And I think we submitted 27 last year. We've received up to $7 million in the last several years. So we'll continue to do that. We like working with our communities. And again, thank you for the presentation. Very informative, and looking forward to initiating the process.
Hello, Carmen, this is Hubert again.
Hi, Hubert.
Again, thanks to you and Michelle. Michelle, thank you for including us to help set up how this kind of works, and we appreciate that very much, and appreciate the confidence you had in our program. I will be getting out an email to all of my local governments and other entities that are eligible for capital outlay tomorrow. And I know this is a real short time fuse, but we would like to be able to get everybody's capital outlay back before December 10th, and that's well before February 11th. I know that, but we want to be able to put our books together for our legislators so that they get a chance to review the projects. And when we have our county by county meetings, that they will be able to ask you good questions and make comments on their copies of their books that they have. And so, again, if you need any help with any of that, let us know. We're familiar with the form and how to do it. And it's real simple to do this year. That's the reason I feel good about the short fuse, is that, you just go to your ICIP number, punch the number in, and it'll self-populate itself. So it's going to save you a lot of time and make the process a whole lot faster. And so I look forward to working with everybody on our capital outlay, and we'll just send us a copy of what you submit to Legislative Council Service so that we can track that project for you throughout the process. Thank you.
Carmen, this is Monica from North Central. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Executive Director for the North Central Council of Governments, and you can see our 7 regions there. Last year, we had a legislative breakfast for legislators combined with the capital outlay training for the local governments, and it was an in-person event, of course. And we just spent a lot of the day helping local governments fill out their capital outlay requests. This year is obviously different for a lot of reasons. We are glad to assist with getting these forms submitted. We can set up a Zoom meeting and just do a screen share with you. And we will probably organize something a little bit later. We wanted to get through this training first. Maybe we'll do things by appointment, but we do have good Zoom capabilities and we can definitely work with our members. It's good to see the ICIP and the capital outlay processes moving closer together throughout the years. I've been working on ICIPs since like 1997 when I worked for the town of Taos, a long time ago. So anyway, thanks very much. And members, please reach out to myself or Lisa Cedillo, who you all know, if you need assistance. Thank you.
Carmen?
Thank you, Monica. Yes, go ahead.
This is Sandy Geiser from the Mid-Region Council of Governments. I just wanted to remind our communities in the Mid-Region Council of Governments that we are putting together a booklet with your projects for the legislators, since there's going to be difficult to have in-person meetings this year. Peyton Showalter is our planner who's working on that, and she will be sending you out the deadline. Now that we're working on these ICIP forms, this is a good time to get those information to us so we can help you with getting your requests to the legislators. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you, Carmen.
Thank you, Sandy. Jay, or let me see who we have missing. I think just Jay and Evan. Is Evan available?
Hey, Carmen, it's Jay Armijo with Governments. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, anyway, good presentation today. I just wanted to say to the entities in Socorro, Sierra, and Doña Ana counties, if you need any assistance, don't hesitate to reach out to the Council of Governments. We'd be glad to help you. We're working, we're kind of like North Central. We wanted to get through this presentation before we got too far ahead of ourselves, but we'll probably do a combination of a few presentations before legislators. Some of our entities like to meet with their legislators one-on-one without the card, which is fine as well. But if you would like specifically for us to help you get a Zoom meeting together with your legislator or a conference call or anything like that, we'll be glad to help. We'll probably I think Sierra County, we're going to lock down a virtual meeting for the entities in Sierra County and possibly Socorro as well. Doña Ana County tends to be a little bit harder for us to pull off a meeting, but we may try some of that as well. But my phone number is 575-740-07. If anybody has any questions for me or any requests for assistance. And thank you, Carmen. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Anybody has
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. And just to let you, if our COGS could, I know that on the ICIP website in our guidelines, we have all of the information for the councils of governments. But if you don't mind, all of you putting your contact information with the phone number in the chat, and we will make sure to share that with everyone as well. And is there anyone else? Evan, I know he had a meeting, so I don't know if he was able to join us for this, but I think that's the only one we have missing. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Just really quickly, just wanted to show everyone that we actually got 507 total submissions for the ICIPs and almost 6,000 projects again. And that's usually the norm every year. But this year, we actually had, like about $10 billion or more in projects that were, that there's definitely a need in the state of New Mexico. And so, obviously there's not that much money out there, but, that's why it's very important for you to really look at the projects that you're able to really get off the, as we say, shovel ready and get them off and get them done. So, I really appreciate that. And also our website is here. I provided that for you also. And then again, just wanted to let you know if you're not sure where, to find your project ID number. Remember, if you look at your list, it's just right across. First, you'll see your entity code, the name of the project, and then the project ID number is on your project list from your ICIP. And if you're not sure, you can always call me and I can assist you with that as well. And then, as always, I just wanted to take this time to thank you all one more time. And this is information to contact both Jeanette or I. Again, if you have any questions at all, my cell phone I actually put on here because that's the best way. Actually, email is the best way to contact me, but if you need to call me, you are welcome to do that as well. And then I'd like to, see if Jeanette had anything that she'd like to add before we close the meeting.
Great job, everyone. I think everyone who was involved in putting this new form together should give themselves a round of applause. It's definitely improved from last year. And I think that our goal is to continue to make improvements as needed. So just great job, great collaboration. Really appreciate everyone's efforts. And, just make sure that you reach out to us if you have any questions. We're here for you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Any last comments, Michelle, before we close the meeting?
Just thank you, everyone, so much. I really appreciate all the help with this, and call us if you need us.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, everybody, once again for joining us. Again, remember, if we didn't answer all of your questions, you're more than welcome to email us as well. And please stay safe and be well. Thank you, everyone.